Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the other side. This video is going to be a little bit different than my other videos. I try to cover stuff that's not personal. I know everybody has a strange story to tell. I have a few of them that I've collected over the years. Not many things have happened to me, but this is the stories that I have collected and some that I have experienced when I worked at a haunted movie theater. So sit back, relax, grab some popcorn, and I'm going to tell you the terrifying stories that I collected and some of them that I experienced when I worked at a haunted theater. For quite a while, I've heard the theory that watching horror movies and paranormal TV shows, shout out Hellier, can give you a predisposition to having a paranormal experience. Although I choose not to believe this because my watch history would lead toward demonic possession levels of haunting, I can't deny weird things have happened concerning the viewings of horror content at my local movie theater in the hometown I grew up in. Disclaimer, this is a movie theater in Southeastern Kentucky. It is the best movie theater in about 3 counties, so it's the theater that most people go to. It's fairly large. When you first start a new job, especially as a high school student, there's usually some light hazing and inside jokes that newbies are unaware of. When I started working at my local theater, I was always told that it was haunted. Trying to establish myself, I didn't take the bait, and I told them I needed proof because I wasn't going to freak out over nothing. Asking for proof only added more validity to their stories. The assistant manager at the theater, who would go on to become a very good friend of mine, took me into his office. He shut the door and told me not to tell anybody what he was going to show me because it'd be bad for business. He queued up multiple saved clips on the security camera software. I slowly began to feel immense dread that I wasn't being pranked. Clicking play, I see a black and white night vision shot of the perpetually dark projection area. The camera was focused on the door to the projection area and surrounded by servers where the movies would be uploaded, with a long, dark hallway with projectors on either side going behind it. I then see our projectionist walk into and out of frame, going down one of the hallways. We see him flip on one of the small lights above the projector to do whatever checks he needs, before we then see a shadow figure cross into the same area and begin walking down the hallway. Whatever was in the video was a similar size and shape to that of an average human male, but it was pure black. The save clip ended after that, as there's nothing else that happened within that time period. Another clip that was queued up was of the management office that I was currently sitting in. They had cameras pointed at the desk because that's where people would go to count out their concession stand money. The owner of the theater is sitting at a desk and talking to somebody off camera. Above her is a wire shelf with a plethora of everyday items, one of which being a remote to the 2 large TVs in the office where the security feed plays. The remote slowly lifts up and hovers off the shelf, about a solid foot and foot and a half away from the shelf, and then falls to the ground. It was like it was gliding on an invisible shelf before it dropped. Again, nothing else happens and the clip ends. I was then shown some videos of poster cases opening on their own, doors swinging open with nobody around them, and orbs that would meander in and out of frame. This freaked me out immensely, but it would not prepare me for my own experience. My paranormal encounter begins with the hiring of a new manager. On his first night closing, I was the quote-unquote late usher. That meant I had to stay until the very last movie let out to ensure nobody was doing anything appropriate within the theaters. No talking, no texting, no inappropriately touching. So typically, I would go and assist with turning off the projectors with the night manager because the projection area is a very spooky place to be alone. After the last customers left this night, only the assistant manager and the new manager and I were in the building. The assistant manager and I had spent the previous 2 hours or so telling the new manager all of the spooky stories and supernatural happenings that had been reported within the theater. He wouldn't even consider the possibility of ghosts being real. As we walk up the dark staircase to the projection area, the new manager tells us he's going to prove that the theater is not haunted. As we enter the projection area, he drowns out the loud, rhythmic humming of projectors with a profanity-infused rant about ghosts not being real, and if they were, they should show themselves. The rant continued until we turned off all 12 projectors. As we're walking toward the door, he smugly announced, "See, nothing is there." In hindsight, that might have been a bad decision on his part. As I pull the heavy metal door to the projection area close, something hits the door from the inside with a resounding boom. This slammed the door into me, and it hit me with enough force that I fell into the assistant manager, who then, due to momentum, almost knocked the new manager down the long concrete staircase we were standing at the top of. We were all able to recover. Within a second, we then realized something was very wrong in this situation. That door should not have slammed into me at all. We freaked out. We sprinted down the staircase and stayed in the building just long enough to set the alarm before scrambling outside, away from whatever entity was pissed off at the new manager. The next day, I woke up to a phone call from the assistant manager I'd worked with the night before. He asked if I could come in early and look at something with him. The promise was, if I came in early, I wouldn't have to close that night, which I really did not want to do again, based on what had happened. As I head to the theater and go in, I'm called to the office. The new manager and the assistant manager are sitting in there, and they're both looking pretty rough. They tell me to take a seat and look at one of the 2 TVs in the office. They pull up 2 clips from the night before. One camera is of the staircase to the projection area, and the other camera is the previously mentioned one that's pointed toward the door inside the projection area. They play both clips at the same time. As the clips play, you see all of us exit the projection area. My hand is loosely on the door just to ensure it's closing, when all of a sudden we see the door slam into me and the new manager almost tumbling down the stairs. There was nothing at all in either camera view that could explain why this door slammed like that. We even made excursions in the projection area on nights that we were previewing new movies to see if we could recreate the slam. Everything we tried did not work. Even the employee, who was training for the Arnold Classic, which is a bodybuilding competition, couldn't slam the door with enough force to almost knock 3 men down a staircase. This is an experience that I think of quite often. I try to think of a theory or a way to make it work, and I'm unable to think of any way that that door slammed like that. This isn't even the most horrifying or supernatural experience that somebody has had at that theater, though. Some of the other tales of strange happenings at the haunted theater also include the projection area, but these involve other employees witnessing full-body apparitions. One of these experiences resonated with the person who experienced it so much that it drove him to become a priest or a pastor. I'm not entirely sure. The employee who would eventually go on to become a pastor, who I will refer to as pastor, had such an eerie experience that afterward I refused to look up at the projection windows. This was a day when the theater hosted a school group that came to watch a movie. Typically, one manager and about 3 or 4 employees work the school field trips. The manager will turn on one projector in the morning, and then the projectionist will come in on regular time to get everything else going. Pastor is in Theater 6, which is the largest theater in the building, sweeping up after the students and teachers cleared out. It was around noon. The first shows didn't start until 1:45 that day. As Pastor is sweeping, he looks up at the projector window and sees our projectionist Jordan looking at him through the window and waving at him. Pastor waved back at Jordan, finished up the 3 to 4 feet left in the aisle he was sweeping, and walked down the ramp and out of the theater. As he was walking down the ramp, he could see Jordan standing in the middle of the lobby, speaking with the head manager. Pastor walked up to them, confused, and asked Jordan how he got to the lobby so quickly. Jordan explained to Pastor that he had just recently gotten to the theater and was just asking the manager something about the schedule. At that point, he hadn't been upstairs, and the manager he was talking to was the only person in the building that had a code to get upstairs. Pastor then explains to both the manager and Jordan that he had just waved at somebody who he thought was Jordan and clearly saw them in the projection window. This concerned both Jordan and the manager to the point they gathered a few employees and did a complete sweep of the projection area, including checking the cameras. They found no sign of anybody being up there. Another projections area story comes from the former projectionist Martin. Martin was the theater's longest tenured employee, and there have been both good times and bad times, but no matter what, he stuck through it. At one point, back when the theater was still showing movies on film, Martin was at the back edge of the projection area, splicing a film together. He heard footsteps and saw out of the corner of his eye somebody who he thought was the other projectionist at the time. Who he was up there with was anything but that person, or even human. Martin began to rant about some football game that had happened recently. I cannot recall if he said it was a college football or high school football. Either way, it wasn't a professional game, and these teams were rivals. Martin and the other projectionists were mega fans of opposing teams, so he began ranting to him. As he's ranting, he hears his name being called on the walkie-talkies that employees carry. He responds back and asks what they want. When the person who called comes back over the radio, he asks him if he wants something to eat. He realized the voice on the other end was the other projectionist. Martin then turns, begins to ask the other projectionist, "Why did you use the walkie-talkie if you're right here?" But before he can even finish his sentence, he realizes that the person standing before him in the projection area is somebody who he has never seen before. Martin has always had a hot temper, so he immediately gets upset and yells at him, "Who the hell are you?" With a clenched fist, he takes a step forward toward the mysterious stranger who's been hovering over him for the past few minutes. The mystery man silently glides backward as Martin approaches. Before he can comprehend what he is charging at, the man lets out a dry, dark laugh and disappears before Martin's eyes. Having known the person who witnessed this event for many years, I know he wasn't just trying to tell me a story and mess with me or anybody else. His story has stayed consistent since the first time I heard him tell it, and he is visibly upset every time he tells it. He has not found out who or what he was ran into in the projection area that day, but he believes that something is manifested in the theater, like a tulpa. The concept of a tulpa would be that the patrons of the theater somehow conjured this entity in their imagination, and it's acquired some form of tangible existence. Maybe something from watching a horror movie. The final story I'm going to share is one of supernatural and extraterrestrial encounters from the movie theater Night Shift. We affectionately know them as the cleaning crew. They would come in nightly and deep clean the movie theater to ensure it's ready for moviegoers the next day. The cleaning crew would typically work between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m., and according to them, weird things would happen during the witching hour, which in folklore is reported to be 3 a.m. The witching hour is thought to be when demons, ghosts, and many other folklore creatures are most active. One of the common occurrences that was reported by the cleaning crew was of a haint that they nicknamed Brickman. Like clockwork, every night when they were taking out their carts full of trash, they would see a shadow figure step out between the back door and the dumpster of the movie theater. The figure would take one large, gaping step with loose arms toward its side. Think of the Conor McGregor victory strut, but with larger steps. After taking this one step, the figure would linger in its position, with its back leg still partially inside the brick wall of the theater. After lingering for a few moments, the figure would step back into the wall like a video clip put in reverse. Brickman wouldn't show up every night, but there would be at least one sighting each week. Also, like most Bigfoot lore, if somebody were to go outside with the intention of seeing Brickman or taking a photo of it, it would not appear. Another cleaning crew story almost led to a missing persons report being filed. For reference, atop the mountain behind the movie theater is our local arena. One night in the late 2000s or early 2010s, one of the cleaning crew members went out the back door of the theater to take out the trash, and he was immediately accosted by a brilliantly bright light. As his eyes adjusted to what he thought was a spotlight from the arena behind the theater, he realized that the light was moving through the sky and a low hum was in the air. As he watched this UFO fly around the sky, he was amazed by what he saw. After a few minutes, the UFO disappeared. The employee threw away the trash and went back in to tell the story of the unidentified flying object he saw flying around. As he walked up to the crew that was gathered in the lobby, they seemed relieved to see him before one of the other employees began yelling at him, asking where he went. He began to explain what he saw and told them that he had only been outside for 2 or 3 extra minutes watching this UFO, so they shouldn't be upset. The group then got quiet and told him that they had not seen him for a few hours, concerned because his car was still in the parking lot and they couldn't find him. They were gathered up in the lobby, deciding if they should call the cops and report him missing or not, right before he walked up to the group. The same cleaning crew employee has become very successful in life and has been able to afford a lot of very intricate and detailed tattoos. One of his most prominent tattoos is of the UFO he saw that night. I don't know if he was abducted or not, but what he saw that night impacted him so much that he has it permanently inked onto his body. Thank you all. That is all I have for this episode of The Other Side. Hopefully you enjoyed some spooky stories I have collected from the people in my life and my personal encounter. If you like more stuff like this, I have a handful of other stories I can provide. One of them involves a man who allegedly worked for the government and how he told us about aliens one night. Another one involves a spirit that follows my family that everyone else has witnessed. Thank you all. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Make sure you follow me on Twitter. I appreciate every one of you who views this. Join us next time as we take a look at things from the other side.